Pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, yeah. Hey, so in our previous videos we talked about a lot of things. What we could do, recycling. We talk about cows. We're talking about wind and solar.
Fusion is the holy grail of energy. We need to use very small atoms and generate large amounts of heat for this to work.
Let's talk about a little bit how fusion works, because we did a little bit so it's kind of the opposite of fission. Instead of splitting, we're fusing two atoms together, and so therefore to get a difference in mass, you want to use small atoms, like hydrogen. Hydrogen is the smallest atom, right? And the sun, as we said, it produces a nuclear reaction fusion by heat and compressing hydrogen and fusing it into helium, okay? And so that emits all kinds of energy out. And so the sun does that, and it's around 10 million degrees Celsius, okay? So here on Earth, we don't have the advantage of having a big, huge mass of pressure like the sun to force those hydrogen atoms to fuse. So we have to make it really, really hot. And to do that amount of heat, we're talking about 10 times the amount of the sun, or 100 million degrees Celsius, okay? That's the problem with fusion right now.
It appears that it may be achievable to create nuclear fusion energy, since many governments are working on this now. Both fission and fusion energy would go a long way in solving our energy problems.
Well, let's talk a little bit about fusion then, because do you think that's worthwhile exploring if we have fission?
I think so. I mean, there's companies, and you'll get into this later, but there's companies already doing it, and I think all of them project they're in the next decade or two, they're going to be able to have working prototypes or ones that will be able to produce electricity. So we know that it wouldn't be worth doing if there weren't companies already doing this. But we know of 3 or 4 examples already that are going on in the world where they're making a lot of progress as far as they obviously have some hurdles to overcome, but I think through time they're going to be able to solve these.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's worth science-wise and engineering-wise. There's a lot of challenges, but that's the exciting part of it. Humanity wants to tackle these problems, and I think we advance as a species because we can look at these and address the problems and say, hey, how can we make the human condition better? And I think fusion may be one of those things that will be advantageous for us in the future. So let's say we do nuclear up to 40%, maybe even 50% if we get there. If fusion comes online safely and effectively, we can transition those power plants to fusion power plants, as fusion gets tackled and solved. So I think doing both is important. We do what we have now, fission. We convert that to fusion if that ever gets to be a viable product.
There are many benefits to nuclear fusion. It is a large amount of energy created with no radioactive waste and is easier to control.
Let's talk about the positive of fusion real quick that are over fission. Okay, they're both expensive, but they both provide 24/7 power. Okay, and the reaction from a fusion generator, you can cut that off immediately. You just stop sending it atoms, you stop sending it fuel, and it shuts off right there. There's no problem with a chain reaction situation, okay? So that's a big deal. If somebody's worried about, we need to shut the power down, it's gonna get too hot or whatever, something's wrong, okay, it's safe to you stop feeding it, deuterium and tritium, and it stops. Okay, that's it. Whereas a uranium situation it has that chain reaction problem going. So that's a big advantage of fusion, okay? Number 2 is there's no radioactive waste. Okay, this doesn't produce gamma rays like a uranium splitting does. Okay, so it's very, very safe that way. So, fear of a dirty bomb or terrorism, all these things, making a bomb, and none of that, and burying it, deep into the earth. You don't have to worry about any of those things. Okay, so that's a good 2 big advantages of fusion. If we can ever solve the problem, I think it'll be a safe and clean energy producing method. So
there are many challenges to overcome for fusion energy. How do we even contain the reaction, let alone get enough energy out of it? How is it even possible to generate over 100 million degree temperatures?
So I got a question for you. Is it possible to make like all our energy structure off of fusion if it was like really all the problems were solved and we could provide this to all the different countries? Is that possible to do, you think, with fusion?
Now, so let's talk about the problems, and maybe it goes back to your question about the future. A couple things there. One is to produce 100 million degrees Celsius temperature is not a trivial challenge. Okay.
Yeah. That would
And what do you put that in? How do you contain that? It's like you throw a metal with your strongest container, you throw it into the sun, it's going to vaporize, right? So, how do you tackle that problem? I mean, how do you contain this energy? How do you even make that much energy and power to get it out? And then what do you do with it? How do you channel it? Which takes so you have this perpetuating problem is you can't produce. You have to use so much energy to make the atoms fuse that the energy you get out is not equal to the energy you put in. Okay, so that's a big problem. And then you have to contain it.
We are now going to summarize the challenges and benefits of nuclear fusion energy and why it would be so worthwhile to pursue.
So we talked about 3 problems so far. The materials that are not prevalent, but they're working on trying to create substitutes. The containment problem. So we'll have to tackle that, with either electromagnets that are powerful enough and that can be cooled enough so we can contain the energy. And we'll have to tackle the problem of we're not getting more energy out than we're putting in right now. So we'll have to either come up with a better way to fuse the 2 atoms or different elements or something where it's giving out more energy than putting in. You're right. There is some worthwhile science to be pursued there, and I think we owe it to our next generation to answer your question. That you asked like 10 minutes ago, but is it worth it for our future generations for us to pursue fusion? I think it is. Will it ever work? I don't know, but certainly the results, if they do work, would be a huge payoff for us. And as far as a non-greenhouse gas emitting 24/7 production of energy,
And probably a large amount of it.
large amount of it, because again, like it's 4 times more than a fission plant. No radioactive waste, and easily containable. So, several big advantages there.
So our message is if you people are really interested in solving the energy and transportation and reducing fossil fuels, you'll go with nuclear.
Without producing
greenhouse
more poor people.
Yeah, more poor people. Solve the energy and the food and all that problems. You'll go with nuclear energy and help develop fusion power as well.
Well said, brother. Well said.
Yeah.
All right, let's end there. Well, until next time.
All right.